It's over. It's over. It is completely over.
Winner takes all, final state capitalism, income, inequality. Increases every decade. The middle class is gradually disappearing since 1980. Global inequality has been increasing since at least 1820. The strange pattern you see towards the end is the rise of the internet and the outsourcing of jobs, manufacturing, farming, and production. Between country inequality decreases with outsourcing. This temporarily affects total inequality, and then total inequality begins increasing again. Marriage rates are decreasing decade after decade. Another source showing marriage rates declining year over year since at least 1960. Percent of single women that wait their turn to get fucked by Chad once every couple years while staying single is increasing. Above, males without sex in the last year has been steadily increasing since about 2012, when dating apps began to go mainstream. This coincides with an increase year over year of crime rate in the US that began around 2012. There's tons of literature showing over and over that more male sexual poverty leads to greater crime. I could have added more graphs, but so far few people would disagree with the premise. As the world becomes more and more interconnected, an increasingly small percentage of men take more and more mates and money, leaving every other man in financial and romantic destitution. Spoiler: the trends are exponential, not linear. When you look at all of these graphs where you only see data for at most around a century, you may mistakenly believe the patterns are linear, not exponential. But even though we don't have the data, we can extrapolate from our historical knowledge to see that this trend began centuries ago. The Puritan age was from 1625–1660. If you had sex with someone other than your marriage partner, the penalty was death. In 1692, divorce was legalized in the Massachusetts Bay Colony. With divorce comes the start of serial marriage monogamy. Multiple women taking turns being married to a single man. This hypergamy is our natural state, and religion was the only thing preventing many women from taking turns sharing a single man. This is because the biological cost is much higher for women to give birth than men, so women are by nature more selective. When you look at these trend lines and realize they started much earlier in the late 1600s, you also realize they have to be exponentially increasing to fit. Punctuated equilibrium hides and obfuscates the exponential nature of the trend lines on smaller scale, multi-decade-long graphs. You can read about what punctuated equilibrium is elsewhere if you don't get it. But essentially evolution, including cultural, societal, and technological evolution, hits inflection points where the rate of change becomes much faster. When it comes to economic inequality, a sample of those inflection points are 4000 BC, invention of roads. Transportation of goods meant wealth could be accumulated much more by fewer and fewer people. 1900 BC, first horse-drawn carriage, transportation of more goods. 300 BC, Indian Ocean trade routes, established connecting India, Arabia, East Africa. 1832, invention of the telegram. Fast data transfer across the world means data production and processing, all thinking jobs, can begin to be exported to other countries rather than sticking with local talent. This leads to a smaller and smaller percentage of people making the most money. 1982, invention of the internet. Competition starts to become global, leading to fewer and fewer winners amongst global competition. When you zoom out to look at a period of thousands of years, you see that economic inequality is on an exponential trend. When it comes to dating, inequality, some of those punctuated equilibrium inflection points are 4000 BC, invention of roads, the spread of English, increase in transportation. 1962, divorce starts to become legal in the US. More divorce means fewer women taking turns to marry fewer men. 1848, feminist movement begins in the US. More jobs for women mean women can be more selective about who they marry, choosing to take turns dating and marrying fewer men, 2012 or so. Dating apps go mainstream. Women can now order the best-looking chads in their area to their home. At this point, women have no financial or even entertainment need for men, and more women adopt the strategy to fuck Chad once every couple years, while Chad fucks multiple girls a day. I've met multiple Chads that do this, and over 100, or in some cases, hundreds a year. This isn't speculation. You see this inflection point in the data. With this zoomed-out perspective, you realize it's exponential. The faster transfer of data and goods around the world inevitably leads to a smaller and smaller percentage of men accumulating more and more power, more and more resources, and more women at an exponential pace, leaving the rest of us destitute or near destitute. Money, power, and knowledge is used to accumulate more money, power, and knowledge in a feedback loop, which leads to this exponential change. The trend is clear. We are headed towards a very small number of men that will have near God-like power. We will have super-intelligent AI, more intelligent than all humans. The more money you have, the more tasks and queries you can give these AIs. Capital will transmutate into intelligence, and intelligence will transmutate into capital, such as AI running and starting business, sabotaging competition, playing the stock market, etc., with near-perfect liquidity. Capital, intelligence, and power will be for all practical purposes a single quantifiable resource. This fluidity of capital and intelligence means the richest, most powerful men will also be the best-looking, most charismatic, highest status, and highest SMV. They will not age because they will have machines that de-age their blood and tissues. AI, superintelligence, will be able to transform their bodies via surgeries and other technology into living PSL gods. Then AIs will create the most entertaining possible content with them in it, to get their persona and faces in front of billions of women worldwide. The AIs will also talk to these women and arrange dates and convince these women to do threesomes and foursomes and moresomes using artificial super manipulation. These gods will be able to swim in literal oceans of Stacys who go with their friends to giant orgies of all Stacys, and one of these guys where all of the women are hoping to touch him, like screaming members of a cult conditioned to love and want sex with their cult leader more than life itself. The rest of us, on the other hand, will struggle to feed ourselves and be gunned down by slaughter bots if we attempt to revolt. The rest of us will live in what will be like Gaza, constant bombings, with any Stacys being rescued and evacuated from the area by robots to live in mega mansions, waiting their entire lives for whatever god owns them to come sleep with them. Not unlike Kim Jong-un, leader of North Korea, and the women that wait in houses around the country their entire lives staying virgins to sleep with him and serve him. Yes, we will have AI girlfriends on our phones, but it's unlikely that we'll be able to afford sex robots when we are living off donations of rice, and the trillionaires that pay for it consider themselves our saviors. If UBI comes, it will be barely enough for us to live, because all of us will be no match for super-intelligent slaughter bots. This is not hyperbolic. The exponential trend lines are clear. This is your last chance to become one of the gods. Otherwise, you will be like the 999% of men, hungry, destitute, living in squalor, without ever seeing a real or robotic woman, waiting to be bombed from the sky. With your AI girlfriends on your phones being your only comfort. When it comes to wealth, how rich your parents are is a much better predictor of your success than your intelligence or your grades. Your grades are a good proxy of your work ethic. So we can say the luck of having rich parents matters more than hard work and intelligence. Looks maxing requires money to fully max out. Surgeries, devices, dental, red light therapy, oxygen tanks, hair systems, hair transplants, hair loss drugs, anti-aging stacks, full-body red light devices, blood biomarker tracking, meal plans, high-quality food, all requires money, and genetics determine your base, and your childhood largely determines things like height, frame, and NT-ness. Status is also largely determined by money. If you want to status max by becoming a famous YouTuber, there's a very low chance you'll be able to do that part-time after your job. The most successful YouTubers were full-time for years and years before they made any money, which itself requires money to live, and buy expensive cameras and production equipment. Other status maxes also all require money, or time, which requires money to live. So the chance of changing your SMV significantly is low, but we've seen examples of it. Mostly those examples come from people with the money to at least looks max. My perspective is just because the chance of success is low, even after accounting for hard work, persistence, and intelligence doesn't mean you shouldn't try. Ultimately, everything in nature struggles for survival, and most things die despite their best efforts.